Back again. We ready?
We are ready.
Let's do it. Here we go.
Bit of a Christmas special, but unpopular opinions. We'll save the Christmas unpopular opinions towards the end because people might turn off with how upset they get, particularly yours, Chris.
I was upset by yours.
Are you?
Were you? Okay, well, there's your clickbait for it. And hang on to the end. The listen time will be up on this one. But I'm back with David Hatt, the founder of NGN Coaching, and Mr. Chris Burns, the founder of Savage Scholar Consultancy. And this has been really, really popular when we've got together before. In fact, when I was sharing the top 10 most listened episodes of 2022, 2 of ours were in there amongst all the behemoth guests that we've had.
I was genuinely
impressed. A lot about your listeners.
I was actually impressed, to be fair.
I was genuinely impressed. Yeah. I text my mum.
Nice one, guys.
Made it vibes. But what we'll do is we'll work our way around the table with an unpopular opinion, and we'll start with you, Chris, to bring us your first unpopular opinion.
Right. Well, I almost said my Christmas one there.
You need to fold the paper like I've done. I've hidden one of mine.
So my first one is business related. So mine's is, see when you hear this a lot on Twitter and like in the kind of business development space in general, seeing people say things like, oh, if you can't take like X amount of time away from your business, then you don't have a business, you have a job.
Mm-hmm.
That really does my head in, that, because I feel like business is just, it's whatever you make of it. There's all different weird and wonderful ways you can build a business, and just because somebody happens, so right now I can take a couple of days away from my business. I've taken as much as a week away from business. I can't take much longer than that. I don't want to either, because it's my business, it's my livelihood, and I'm still in the very early stages of it, relatively speaking. So I want to be there at the forefront, building it and making it better and better. I think it totally
depends on where you're at in that stage in business as well, isn't it? If you want to, I mean, there's going to be times where you're going to work 10, 15 hour days every day, constant. Maybe you're launching something new, maybe it's a new business, and there's going to become stages where you've maybe done that for 3-4 months in a row and you want to take that extended period of time. But I think, like you said there, it comes down to like, what do you want? Like, do you want to take time off, but you don't necessarily need to, if you're totally fine just working like that.
If I'm going to play devil's advocate, one of the accusations off the back of that initial statement is it not that, oh, you just have a highly leveraged job? Mm-hmm. So if, for example, we've spoken before about personal trainers, they are their business, and so people would say you don't have a business without you, and to some extent they would be correct, but I think they take it too far, as you're saying, Chris, in terms of course, if I withdraw from any business, if you're the CEO, the operations director, whatever it is, when you're out of the business for a sustained period, more than a week, because people don't get their annual leave signed off for hours on end, so of course you still have a functional business when you step out of it for a short period of time. But I think anyone stepping away for a long time,
you need to work insanely hard to get to the stage where your business is automated to an extent where you need to do nothing. And most, even if you can get there, you probably, I would say you don't want to get there, because you want to be so heavily involved still. And I think most, you really get a business owner that's just in it to automate it and then fuck off. Like, don't get me wrong, some people start a business with the sole goal, I'm starting this to sell it in 6 years, I'm starting this to sell it. But on the most part, people are in business, people run a business because they're insanely passionate about what they're doing. So I don't think that necessarily needs to be the case.
You see a lot of founders, when they sell out, they either start to get depressed and lose their purpose, or they go and do something else as soon as their covenant or whatever they've done allows them to, or you have a lot of early deaths and people that become financially free at an early stage as well. So it probably links into that in terms of if you weren't doing what you really care about, then maybe design a business that allows you to work as much as you're able to or up to.
I just think it sets a kind of a bit of a false standard for people, almost an unattainable one a lot of the time. It's like, oh, you've not got a business until, like you say, you can take this time away from it. And it's like, well, like you say, is that really how you want to be starting out? Like, if you're just starting out in business and you're holding yourself to that standard, and because I mean, I'll give a personal example. I have now got staff working within my business, 2 members of staff. And it's given us more time back for sure, and it's allowed us to take off more time for sure. But like, say a year, 2 years ago, I was writing every single email, scheduling every email, pitching I was doing absolutely everything in my business. So I now have an appreciation of what that's like. So, I mean, maybe the people that work for me will tell you differently, but I now set fair expectations for them. I understand what it takes. And I think if you go into a business trying to escape it from day one, or with that kind of criteria, it's like, okay, I need to get out of this as soon as I can. It's like, I really don't think you're going to go far. I'm sorry, I really don't. Like, you need an appreciation for these things. You need to be at the coalface and get in with all the nuts and bolts. And then like you, with MTN, like, every nook and cranny in that business. So when you're talking to the coaches, you do it from a position of like authority and understanding.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just feel like it's a misleading.
I think you also look at like I could take maybe 3 or 4 weeks and do zero, and the business would kind of still run. But when I went back, what state would it really be in? Like I've got a lot of automation set up. I've got a lot of stuff like systemized in that respect, but you still need innovation, especially with a business as well. You need to continually be adding new ideas and doing new things. And I think if the founder is away from that, things start to slip pretty quick, to be fair.
Yeah, so that opinion's one that's pushed online because somebody's probably got an axe to grind, don't they, in terms of, you don't have a business unless you're able to take time off or move away from it. But it's pretty far-fetched, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's quite an arrogant thing to say, because it's obviously through their lens. It's like, I can take time off my business. I think like people always, and again, we're all guilty of this, but you look at it through your own lens, and it's like, well, if I can take time off my business, so this must be the only way. That's like me saying the only way that you can make sales and the only way that you can grow your business is if you have direct response copy in your business. And it's not true. Some cooperators will tell you it is, and it's not. But like, that's just my biases coming through. So I feel like if you're maybe like a little bit more impressionable or whatever, and you see that notion be put out there, you're like, all right, well, I'm working all the time. I've actually got a full-time job, and then I'm doing business on the side. I'm working all the time. I must not have a business until I can take 2 weeks off. It's like, no, don't worry. As soon as you've got a limited company letter through the door and you've got your business, you've got a business. Don't let some dweeb on Twitter tell you any different. You know what I mean? Yeah,
agreed. That's one that we're not going to push back on, Chris. So that's certainly signed off.
Good start.
An unpopular opinion that sounds like a popular at this table anyway. We're maybe not the best demographic to ask.
No, probably not.
Same views on most things.
Yeah.
David, do you want to kick us off with your list?
I think I'm going to lower the tone maybe. Mine's is to do with photo shoots, and specifically females. It's usually females because guys tend to not do this. But when you're doing a fitness photo shoot, in my opinion, the idea is to be honest, motivate the audience and show them what you're capable of, and document the process. What I don't understand is people doing fitness shoots in lingerie, but in the gym doing a lap pull down. I really don't understand this. So if you're going to do a fitness photo shoot, like pick one, do a lingerie shoot or do something in the gym. If you're doing something in the gym, it doesn't make sense for you to be in high tops, but be in loungewear, underwear, doing a lap pull down. I just don't fucking understand it.
I would go further and say I don't understand the lingerie shoots in the gym location at all, even if they aren't doing an exercise. Like I've seen a lot of that this year in particular. Yeah. There's been a huge push on that, and I get the whole female empowerment piece where you probably feel at your best to feel sexy enough to put on a particular set of lingerie or whatever, and as men obviously we can appreciate that in terms of the aesthetics. However, it's not particularly fashionable.
How polite was that? Sorry,
However, it's not particularly aesthetic from a fitness perspective, is it? It's a more sexual type of shoot than a traditional
I've just never understood it. It's like pick one. Like the 12-week peak for us is a massive thing. Like the sole idea is a photo shoot, but the idea is to come to the gym, get photos done in your underwear. Don't get me wrong, be in underwear if you like for the studio shoot or whatever, and if you want to go into the gym and get shots done, but like wear something that you would wear in the gym. I don't understand advertising your business with you in a thong but doing a bent over row. You're not going to be in the fucking gym doing that.
Do you think it's coaches that are the most guilty of that, David?
No, I was going to say.
Nah, I think it's sluts. No, I'm joking. Totally
there
kidding.
We go.
Totally kidding. Coaches do it a lot, but I also now think coaches are pushing that towards their clients to do. And again, I'm not a female, so I actually maybe just don't understand it. Maybe it is incredibly empowering for them to do that, and I'm sure there is a side of that that's true. But I just think like if the job of a photo shoot for me and for my clients and for my company and our clients is to document your hard work and to maybe create images that are motivating for other clients, which if they're in the gym, like just be wearing gym stuff or have your top off if you're a guy.
Yeah. Where's your head at with it, Chris?
Do guys do it? That's where my head.
Guys don't wear lingerie, so maybe it's different.
But the guys wear it, and like the guys do it. Like I'm totally like oblivious to this. Like genuinely, I've never really seen much of this. I don't really follow.
So I suppose you would still get if I was looking at like a lap pull down for the example that I set there. Guys would do that with their top off, not in their pants, pair of shorts, some of their top off. But you do get gyms where you get people training
with their tops off.
Yeah.
Do you get gyms where you go in with high tops on and those knee warmer things, and lingerie probably not. No. So I just think I
don't see a lot of that.
It's a thirst trap, you know what I mean?
Right. Okay.
It is a thirst trap, but how effective is it? Because if you're saying coaches are doing it, how many clients do you think are signing up based off that photo?
I don't know, because I do wonder if some women want to sign up because they're like, I want to feel like that, I want to feel sexy and whatever else. But See that word sexy? It actually makes me cringe a bit from that. Sexy. So maybe it is effective. So maybe if you're a female coach, you're listening, or you're a male coach and you've got your clients doing that, let me know if it's been effective as a marketing tool. I just personally wouldn't use it.
It just seems a bit of a contradiction, doesn't it? Like that particular type of clothing in a gym.
I would say so.
I feel like, now that I thought about it, I feel like if I saw that, I'd be like, that's a bit weird. That'd be my initial reaction, is like, those two things don't go together.
Yeah.
You know, that's
one's for OnlyFans, one's for Instagram.
I feel like that would probably be my initial reaction. So yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
Colin,
I think
what's next?
What's in my unpopular opinions? We'll stick in the kind of fitnessy theme. I know only a handful of people who have good physiques that do functional fitness. So functional fitness being
that's a good one. I like this.
I love this.
Functional fitness being a form of CrossFit or a kind of more athletic version than traditional strength training or bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Now, all of the people that I know that fall into that bracket are in one of the following categories. Either they did bodybuilding first for a number of years and built a great base. Mm-hmm. They're using PEDs, or they have incredible genetics. So there's a lesson in that. If aesthetics and looking better is your aim, functional fitness, unless you fall into one of those categories, is probably not your method of getting to where you want to get to in terms of looking a particular way.
Yeah, I've never met someone that started doing functional fitness and it's built an aspirational physique. Anyone that I know, like you said there, has came from a sporting background or a bodybuilding background and then moved into. And I think that's a testament to how effective bodybuilding training is for a foundation of a physique and a foundation of strength, a foundation of performance for like every area. I think most people would benefit from doing a phase of bodybuilding training at some point in their life. I know we all have, and most of us still continue to do that. But yeah, I totally agree there. I think most of the physiques that you see come from the fact that they're from a sporting or bodybuilding background, or that they're on PEDs.
It's so fashionable at the moment, functional fitness, and I actually think it has huge benefits. I've interviewed loads of guests who have spoken about the virtues of it, and I've nodded along behind the mic saying, yeah, excellent, I completely agree. However, if physique development is the primary goal, I just disagree entirely, because I think because it's so new and it's so fashionable, we're talking in the last 2.5, 3 years probably.
Yeah.
Most of the people that have those physiques that you're seeing do these thrusters and burpees and assault bike, they don't look the way they do based on that.
Yeah.
And that didn't contribute to the rippling abs that you see in the muscle mass.
And I do think now people are selling programs off the back of their physique and the fact that they're now doing functional fitness. It's like, well, no, your physique was largely built through bodybuilding. Now you do functional, so you had that base, and now you're selling the hybrid, which is the classic program that I think everyone has a program now called
I've never
hybrid.
heard of that before.
And it's
such a unique idea.
As a marketer, Chris, you can't have ever seen that before.
If you're listening, coaches, that's a great idea to call it the hybrid.
So I don't go with something more basic like the fat loss project.
Functional fitness project.
I think it's the same as if you look at bodybuilders selling programs on how to get jacked, and they're all on steroids and they're not admitting to that. Liver King. It's the same from functional fitness. You get all these athletes now that are selling programs to improve performance and aesthetics by doing a functional fitness program. But realistically, if you're wanting to improve your aesthetics, it shouldn't be through functional fitness primarily anyway.
Yeah. I mean, if you look like a fucking sock filled with custard, you shouldn't be doing thrusters or power cleans to try to transform your physique. Let's be honest, it's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm so happy I'm not in the fitness industry in that capacity anymore. I can just let rip on these things because it's nonsense. Like, I think that but see, when you're talking about like marketing it to people or like selling it to people, I think the general consensus from people who are in the kind of mass market is like, oh yeah, of course he looks like that because people that are shredded are all athletic and they can all do those things. So that must have what got them into that shape. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what they always associate with it, but it's not true. It's just not the case.
And some of the best looking physiques cannot perform that well. So that's a good point on the opposite end of that. If you look at some of let's get Bumstead the most aspirational muscle up, a double under. It's not going to happen. So I think that's such a good point there. Yeah,
I think it's just a misconception really, and I think like you say, they're just. It's a little bit of naivety in the mass market, so they feel like, and also I think it's really bad for people to perhaps go into that who are out of shape. Mm-hmm. You know, they are out of shape, and it's like, do you know what? Maybe like just doing some basic bodybuilding work with a little bit of constructed cardio is the best thing for you as an entry level to get in, to get some quick wins, to feel a bit, to get a bit of a passion for it and enjoyment out of it before you start going doing Fran, you know, and blowing out your arse. every workout?
I actually felt the need to launch like a functional fitness side of the 12-week peak this year. So we had like the male and female standard programs, and then I thought, you know what, functional fitness is massive right now. Let's try and capitalize on this. And it was a terrible decision because it's totally out with what we generally do as a company. And two, if I look at the results from the people that had done the functional, which was only maybe 30 people out of 220 versus anyone else that had done the more bodybuilding-esque program, the results in the bodybuilding, and maybe that's a larger talent pool of people, of course, but generally, like if it's body comp results that you're after and it's a body comp program, do body comp training, which is largely bodybuilding based movements.
Having done the 12-week peak this year and pushed myself to get as lean as possible, the last thing I would want to be doing for my cardio instead of steps would have been something high intensity and high output in terms of on the assault bike or on the rower or in any form of that would have beaten me up so much, because the next day I was going in to try and leg press the same amount of weight so I could hold on to the muscle in my quads so that when it came to the photo shoot, they were still as big as possible and as lean as possible.
It's so hard to manage recovery with that intensity of training unless you have been consistently doing that for years. So people that add in, I had a client recently ask me if she could add in conditioning as part of her cardio rather than just the Stairmaster cross trainer or just steps. And I actually said no. I was like, you probably could and you maybe can, but I'd rather you didn't, because it's not going to allow you to maximize your recovery, which when you're dieting needs to be like one of the biggest things that you're aware of. Like, how are you recovering from your sessions? It needs to be like top of the list.
The big thing for me is adherence. However, functional fitness is probably easier to adhere to because it's slightly more enjoyable than the kind of mundane, repetitive nature of some elements of bodybuilding. But if I'm talking to people who are like really, really aesthetic, amazing body composition physiques, you're not like, I just don't think you're going to get there as the average from an average starting point by doing purely functional fitness, and there's not going to happen.
Just to so when functional fitness, right, is about, obviously we're talking more kind of CrossFit style workouts, right, and that kind of idea. But see that branch of functional fitness where it's just a bunch of gimps doing, like, they've got like clubs and like maces and like all this weird fucking kettlebell, like for example, they've got like a 6 kilo kettlebell, and it's like this Hatt kettlebell workout will torch you in 6 minutes, and they do a squat with a 6 kilo kettlebell. And
it's got a gorilla face on it.
Into a bicep curl. I'm like, if you can squat it, it's doing. If you can bicep curl it, it's doing fuck all for your squat.
Yeah.
So like that's another kind of level of functional fitness, because I have genuine. I'm not just making this up to make a point. You've seen people do that in gyms and stuff, and I just stand in amazement. I'm just like, you've obviously got, and it's nothing against the person doing it. You've obviously got some app or some guy on Instagram that you follow, and you're doing this, man. It's all about like flows. So it's like, oh, let's do a lateral lunge and a forward roll, and then let's come up and swing a mace about our head, and then I don't know, do a box jump, and it's like, do that for 5 rounds, and then clock out. That's you. You're all good. I'm like, good luck getting any results with that nonsense.
I think it's the same with bodybuilding. There's terribly programmed functional fitness workouts, and there's terribly programmed bodybuilding workouts.
Oh, 100%.
There's the great side of each. Like there's some coaches out there that you probably would get decent results from a body comp standpoint doing functional, but they're few and far between, I would have said.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, Chris, next unpopular opinion.
Oh, this is good. You might not agree with this. David, sorry. Working all the time is a sign of poor discipline, not hustle.
So that's the people that can't switch off?
Yeah. I feel like if you are, this might sound like it contradicting about taking time out of your business, but I just feel like if you are constantly working, constantly saying you're busy, constantly like adding to your to-do list, like that, to me, that you're not busy, you're not hustling, you're not grinding, you just aren't getting stuff done, you're prioritizing the wrong things, or you're just packing your days full of stuff that isn't important. And because of that, you're not getting that switch off time. Now, we all have different amounts of time we need to switch off, but one thing that's true is you need that you see, unless you're somebody like Elon Musk, right? So let's get the outliers off the table. Unless you're somebody that's at the 0.1% of 0.1% on this planet, you need to have time away from work so you can come back refreshed. That's just, there's no avoiding that. So I feel like if you're just caught, those people that are just like constantly, oh, I'm working, I'm busy, I'll get this, I've got that. I'm just like, are you really? Or I feel like you're not really addressing the
how many blocks of deep work are you doing a day? I've talked to David about this before, but how many kind of blocks of work do you think you're doing? Like, 'cause people talk about, I am contracted 9 to 5. I am not working 9 to 5. Of course I'm not. I probably do 3 or 4 hours of really good work and then the rest of the time's a little bit reactive to emails and stuff like that as well. Whereas, or the rest of the time I'll go for a walk at lunch, I'll go to the gym at lunch, I'll break up my day in that way. Whereas people are like, oh, I'm constantly busy 9 till 5 or 10 till 6 or whatever your working shift is. That was where I would fall into the whole lack of discipline pattern. Are you checking TikTok during that? Are you actually answering the email that you're meant to be answering, or are you going away from it to do something else quickly and fight fires? But what does your working day look like, Chris, in terms of deep work?
Deep work, it's always done in the morning, and it's one block of deep work. It's usually around like in 3-4 hours, like I do. And then after that, I'll try and go for a walk and then come back. And I don't go into like reactive work. To be honest, I don't have a lot of reactive work, but the work I do when I come back after my deep work block is more about editing, looking over the work. So like, if the copywriter that works for us, I'll look over his work and copy chief it and do those kind of things. It's more that kind of work, which is easier to get through, doesn't require as much kind of mental energy and focus. But for that deep work session, I think I said before, I've got noise cancelling headphones. I've got,
Can you sit for what, 3-4 hours?
Easily, aye.
Really?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. I'll be same song on repeat, locked it, just like go, you know what I mean. The only time I need to get up off my chair is if I need to go to the toilet or something like that. But like I'm locked in on those tasks now. But the thing is, I do within that deep work block, I do go between. So say I've got like 2 or 3 campaigns to write or whatever it is. It's not as if I'm just doing like the one thing. Like I used to get confused because I used to think like, is that what people do? They just do like one thing, because a lot of the deep work stuff came from like Cal Newport and stuff. And like a lot of the times the examples were like coding examples, and it's like, oh, I'm just doing this piece of code. So I'm just like rattling this out. But I found that I can switch between tasks just as long as I complete it and then move on, complete it, then move on. Yeah,
I think something quite freeing for me this past year is just realising that you're never done. And that's actually allowed me to switch off more, because I think in the past I was like, no, I need to get this done, I need to get this done, I need to get this done, I need to. And it's like prioritising. You can't prioritise more than one thing. Like priority is one thing. I think I definitely was guilty in the past of like, no, I need to get all this stuff done. Whereas now, I think genuinely just a belief this year was like, I'm never going to be done. Like as soon as I've done that list, there is another list. And like you are never going to be done as a business owner. I think that's proper freeing for me. Because even before I came out today, I was doing a little bit of work and I was like, I could get that done. I was like, do you know what? It'll still be there tomorrow. It isn't life or death. And if it was a life or death, it would have been done by now. If it was really going to affect me in a positive way, it would have been done by now. So I think with those things, and you do, like everyone works to deadlines, and they don't need to be by a specific day, but like you'll just slowly replace or quickly replace whatever the most important thing is. You'll do it at the start of the day, whatever the lesser of importance things are. That was a terrible use of English there. They'll just get pushed back and back, and then the things that you push back slowly just come forward as you get things done. So yeah, I think that's a big, I suppose, release for me this year, knowing that I'm never going to be done realistically.
I like that, because the goalposts are ever shifting in terms of the demands that you want to do to grow your business and grow your career or whatever aspect you're working in as well. So I completely agree, Chris, that people that are always seem to be working flat out and hard, they probably lack discipline to do some of the deep work blocks that we are talking about and tick off some of the tasks that need done that are life or death. But because if you're constantly all out work and there's no opportunity to stop or pause, then you're probably not doing well enough in the time that you are spending working, in my book. Like I always find it bizarre that people are like in the corporate world, I'll get an email at like 10, 11 o'clock at night and I'm thinking, what were you doing between 3:30 and 5 o'clock that didn't enable you to do this? Like what came up? Like how much TikTok did you watch? How much LinkedIn did you do? Like what were you up to that didn't allow you to do this work during the allotted hours that are happening? You're now swaying over it at that time of night.
I think that's a little bit of arrogance involved in that as well. A little bit of peacocking is a better way to put it. You know, like look at me, I'm working at this time. You know, and like whenever the question comes up, I would say you maybe get it more in the corporate world purely because like they want to be seen to be, you need to be noticed to get promotions and things like that. So I feel like that's probably more of a thing, because I've known people like that. I think people in my family like that are just like constantly talking about like, oh yeah, I'm doing this. Oh yeah, I'm working all the time. I just feel like, you've been at this a long time, mate. Have you not got a handle on this yet? You know, like, and how much?
How are you still doing that?
How are you still doing that? Like, you know, like fair enough if it's the beginning of your career or like we said earlier, the beginning of your business. Like when it was the beginning of my business, which was during lockdown and Jill was still in the police, so she's working shifts. Yeah, I worked 10, 15 hour days. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, and I've done it for months and months and months in a row. But it gets to a point where you're like, I probably need to take a break for this. And do you know what? My work wasn't very good.
Interesting.
Wasn't very good.
Quality.
I think I've been able to.
Sorry, David.
Get back to. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I think I've managed to not be frustrated at not being able to work better than ever this year. So like if I've got days where I'm like, fuck, I can't concentrate on this. In the past, I'd beat myself up and I'd be like, no, I need to sit here and I need to get something done. Now I'm like, nah, I'll just do it tomorrow. And this year again, like, I've definitely learned a lot from a business perspective this year, from a belief perspective. And like I said, if I'm never going to be done and it's going to be shit quality right now, I'll just do it tomorrow when it's better quality and I actually feel I have a better level of, concentration or things like that. And a lot of that concentration comes from taking more time off. And if I find myself constantly putting out shit or stuff that's taking me 3 hours that should be taking me 1, I'm like, I just need a bit of time off. I need to take a few days here and then come back to it with a kind of fresh brain.
You'll learn that like
the hard way.
The hard way, yeah. But also it's almost kind of, I think it's something that writers or like people do, copywriters, I think you learn that very quickly because of the nature of the task you're doing, because it is like creative and all the rest of it. You do find very quickly it's like, oh, I actually can't write anymore today, because when you do try and push through, don't be wrong, sometimes it's decent, sometimes it's passable, but it's never your best work. So I feel like that's something you learn. That's one of the benefits to what I do, is that you learn that very quickly. It's like once you start writing words and then you read back and you go, that is absolute dribble. Yeah. Then you know, right, okay, that doesn't need edited, that needs deleted. You know, it's time to call it a day.
I never know who to credit with this quote, but discipline equals freedom. And I truly believe that. So if you can be disciplined in the hours that you do choose to work, then you give yourself the freedom to go and do some things in your free time and enjoy them, and also changing some of the wiring or discussions that you have with yourself inside your head, David, about when I'm actually going to be done. Let's be disciplined about having time off as well, and realizing that tomorrow I'll do a much better job on it if I play through today and do a half-arsed job.
I had to have a conversation myself about 4 hours ago, because I was out on a call with somebody and then I was heading back to the office and I was like, I need to get back and get this done. And I walked by the hairdressers and I was like, I really need a haircut, but I was like, no, I've not got time to get a haircut. And I just stopped. I was like, have a fucking word to yourself.
I've got a podcast tonight. I need to look good for this.
Look good for these cameras. I was like, I'm getting a haircut.
Do you know how many people ask about Chris's hair routine after every podcast? It's ridiculous, isn't it, Chris?
Mine, that's for sure.
Hey, well,
every time though, Chris, isn't it?
Every time. Yeah, it is every time. Every time I meet people in person, they say two things. They say...
What do they say, Chris?
They say, you're massive, mate. Get the size of you. You're an absolute unit. How do you fix your hair?
It is too common.
I've heard both of them on multiple occasions.
Yeah, my birthday this year.
Yep. Bryce
actually
took a step back when he saw me. I was like, that's a bit far, mate. But I'll take the compliment though. I loved it.
Such was your radius.
Yeah, I just wanted to go home after that because the night was shite after that.
It went downhill rapidly. Right, next unpopular opinion, David, you're up.
I'm actually going to kind of combine two of mine. The first one, I suppose, is that sadness is an integral part of happiness, and it links in with another one that I was going to put, which was comparison isn't the thief of joy. And what I mean by that is, like, I think for so long people chase happiness, but you can't actually experience being happy and that actual feeling of happiness without ever feeling sad. You need to actually have something to compare that to. And that's why I'm kind of discrediting the quote as much as I sent an email on it 3 weeks ago. Comparison is the thief of joy. I'm discrediting it in this regard, in the sense of you actually need comparison in a lot of areas of your life to actually feel the highs when they're high and to feel the lows when they're low. And I think this goes for like motivation as well. Like, you need to feel long periods of feeling fucking unmotivated to then get the high of like, shit, I feel fucking amazing right now. I feel super motivated. And I think it goes for pretty much any human emotion. I think people need to strive for actually just feeling all the fucking emotions that you're meant to feel, rather than like, I just want to be happy. Because if you're just happy all the time, the happiness you feel won't be that fucking good.
It's all relative, isn't it?
It is all relative indeed.
I think it's one of my favourite things that you've spoken about this year online, David, is about that fact that I'm actually recognising I'm having a sad period just now.
Yeah.
I'm not diagnosing myself with a mental health condition, which is another thing that we can get onto, but it's very important that you recognise that, yes, this is not the best period, but it makes me appreciate the period after this when I am at operating at a more happy level, because there's a noticeable difference in feeling. And if you walked around at that happy level all the time, of course, like you say, it would just become the new normal. You would adapt to that, and that would become mundane and boring and the same. So the human experience is meant to have undulations in terms of how we feel.
It goes back to what we're talking about a minute ago about productivity. Like, if I didn't have periods where I didn't feel unproductive, like one of my favourite feelings ever is when I'm just flying through work. Like, you get into a state of flow, whatever you want to call it, and you're just flying through stuff. You're just ticking off loads of shit. You're getting loads of stuff done that's moving the business forward, that's making you money, it's helping people. But you don't really get the high of feeling that without the days that you're just like, I hate my business today. I don't enjoy anything that I'm doing right now. And you need to experience that. And you need to, again, in the past, I'd have got frustrated at that. And I'd have been like, why can't I get this done? I'd feel so bad about it. Whereas I just completely own it now. I'm like, fine, I have days like this. Sometimes it's because I fucking ended up boozing too much and it's actually my fault. And even then I'm now like, you know what, this is my fault, deal with it. You're going to feel great again. And again, the other popular quote, this too shall pass. It's such a relevant quote in this regard. Like you're generally not going to feel that shit for long. Like it's never going to be that long unless you are, chronically depressed, things like that. On the most part, you're all going to have feelings of like complete lows, but they make the highs, that much higher.
So playing devil's advocate a little bit, I think that I do agree with that, but see on a personal level, so you've got very well ingrained habits and practices.
Yeah.
So when you feel sad, you keep up those things for the most part.
Yeah.
But unfortunately for other people, how they feel affects how they act. There's a much stronger correlation between the two. Yeah. So if I feel sad, well, I'm then just going to go and, eat shite, not look after myself, which then prolongs the sadness. I feel like, cycle. Yeah. Whereas like somebody like yourself, or if you have good ingrained habits, I totally agree, because I do the same thing. Like if I'm feeling a bit shitty, I'm like, it's all right. I'm going to just get on with it. I'm still going to do the things that look after my, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm not going to carry this mood around with me. I'm not going to take it out on other people. I'm still going to eat well. I'm still going to train. I'm still going to do my usual routine. And that probably means that we and a lot of other people get out of it a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you are somebody who doesn't do those things, I feel like if you're like, oh yeah, I'm sad, right? Okay, I'm just going to feel my sadness. Then you're fucking in a pit before you know it.
We'll look at this time of the year. This time of the year is a prime example. Everyone's got, 6 to 8 things that make them feel good, whether it's tracking their food, getting their steps in, weight training, meditating, whatever it is. You've got all these things and generally you complete them on the most part 80-90% of the year. Comes to December, you ditch all of them and you start feeling like shit. I know this from personal experience from the last 4 days where I've drank an insane amount of beer. I've not moved, I've not trained, I've not got any steps, I've not got any fresh air. And I felt like shit this morning. But like Chris said, I've got the discipline to be like, no, like today I need to train, I need to sort my to-do list, I need to sort shit out. And then like straight away I was feeling better. Trained this afternoon, went a little bit of a walk. I'm like, I feel good again. And that's put me into that kind of positive cycle of success. Whereas as soon as you kind of take out one of those things that you do to make you feel good, you start replacing it with things that make you feel bad, i.e. booze, eating shitty food, lying on the couch. So yeah, you're right. I do have the habits mostly ingrained that allow me to get out of my funk pretty quick, and most people probably don't. But again, they probably come from years of not having them and then years of them slowly being built in. So yeah, I think that's a really relevant point.
Their sad periods are for longer and probably deeper because they haven't got the same level of self-awareness of how they can maybe get themselves out of it. I think one of the most important contributions that has been made to the mental health conversation in the last year or two has been Andrew Huberman talking about the mind will follow the body.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're saying there in just other terms, in terms of if I know that I'm doing these things which involve me taking action with my body, my mind will follow to some extent.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I had a gentleman on the podcast called TJ Power, who's a British neuroscientist, and he's very similar. He talks about 4 hormones.
What a name.
TJ Power, it's good, isn't it?
TJ Power, that is a good name.
Is that his real name?
I assume so.
Fucking outstanding.
Power.
Fair
Mr.
play.
Power.
Sorry, carry on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Great name. Well done, TJ.
Yeah, well done, TJ. Sorry. Shout out to TJ.
Chris has got some great ideas for your marketing.
Yeah, so many.
TJ was talking about 4 different hormones within the brain, and all of them were managed and actioned by things that you could do with your body, or you could speak about with somebody else, or you could do with somebody else. And I think that's extremely empowering to recognize that I'm in this sad period just now, but the great phrase that you said is that this too shall pass.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time with actions that we can control to a large extent ourselves, which I think is a very positive, empowering thing rather than falling into a hopeless cycle.
That's something that I've been quite naive on in the past, because I've been like, you know what, you're actually not depressed, you've not got anxiety, you just need to do these things. I'm like, that is it. And I was totally naive about it, but like the thing is, like Chris said, like people can't do it. That's fucking why they feel like that. They physically can't get out walking, they can't get to the gym, they've got chronic anxiety about going to the fucking gym. Whereas in the past I was always like, just get up and go to the gym, like you're going to feel better for it, because I actually know that they will, but like they can't do the act of getting to the gym, so it's kind of building things up slowly.
But I think that again, fitness teaches us a lot, is like the skill, the kind of personal skill of doing things that you don't want to do. I think that comes into it as well. So it's like, a lot of people, and again, I forget this all the time, so you do, like a lot of people just do the right things for themselves when they feel like it. I feel like going to work today, I feel like going to the gym. I don't feel like going to the gym, so I'm not going to go. Whereas I feel like, I'm not trying to get all philosophical about going to the gym, right, because some of that does my tits in, but like, if you're
a Spartan going to work,
in the trenches,
you're a lion in the jungle.
In the trenches, I know, fucking, you're a shark.
That was one of my favourite clips from, was that episode 100?
Was that like last year?
Aye. But like that, you get used to, like, again, how many times you wanted to stop a set short of your target reps, how many times have you wanted to stop a workout short. Like, I've got a session in my program just now, and it's 8 rounds, 90 seconds on the assault bike, and every week I go, I'm not doing that. There's no way I'm doing that. But there's another voice in my head that goes, but you're going to sit in the bike, you're going to sit your fat ass in the bike, you're going to do it. Right? But like, so for some people, that voice isn't there, and that they've not had those life experiences where they've pushed so they're just like, they're a very reactive state with also no self-awareness, which is hard place to be. Yeah, it's huge.
I really like that. I think experiencing the range of emotions is so important, that we recognise that it's part of the human experience. The kind of second element that we've maybe not touched on as much there was around comparison, David, and it's not necessarily the thief of joy. I'll always bring us back, don't worry. The thief of joy. How am I not managing that word?
Thief of joy.
There we go. Yeah, operating at a lower level today, but I'll perk up. Right. So I think that when I look at other podcasters, for example, the vast majority, I'm motivated by how well they're doing. I'm like, or I'm pleased for them, or I'm like, oh, that was interesting that they spoke about that topic. Maybe I should consider that. It's interesting they did their clips in that particular way. Whereas I suppose some other people would look at others within their field and jealousy becomes really bad. Or I compare myself. So I see, for example, somebody's hit 1 million downloads, and I'm thinking, I've not got 1 million downloads. I haven't even got half that.
You feel bad about it.
I feel bad about that. That's part of the human condition as well. But following people that you understand that their circumstances are perhaps different to yours, maybe they've done more work than you, maybe they're just more talented than you as well, like that's fine too. And understanding that you can compare yourself to them without necessarily comparing every single facet of your life in terms of how they do that. Equally, one of the examples that people give on podcasts all the time is you could compare your golf ability to Tiger Woods, but you haven't suffered the same way that Tiger Woods has to become a master of his craft. Michael Jordan, we all watched that documentary, didn't we? Nobody was operating, even the other professional basketball players he was playing with, on the same level of him as him. Nobody was torturing themselves to the same extent. So how can you possibly compare yourself to his feats?
I think it's a character trait that's either, not that you have it or you don't, because it can definitely be developed, but like how you view other people. Some people view it in a negative light, like you said there, and some people view it in a more positive way, and I think it is something that needs developed, and it's not something that I've always had on like, oh, that person's fitness business is fucking flying. In the past, or even probably still with certain people, it's not unmotivating, but it doesn't make me feel good and positive. Where there's others that I'm like, oh, they're fucking smashing it. Like, that's so inspiring to see. So I think it is like, I think it's something that you can develop and work on, and you can get better at using comparison as a source of motivation rather than something that demotivates
or
you.
Learning as well. I'm saying there, I'll look at somebody, how maybe they're doing their clips, or maybe how somebody's recorded their intro, or maybe a type of guest that they've got on, or maybe how they've phrased a question. I'm thinking, I'm not as good at that. Maybe I should consider like upskilling in that regard. Sure. Equally, of course, like I've seen somebody will get a guest on, I'm thinking, wow, like I'm gutted I didn't get them, and I'm a bit jealous that they managed that. Exactly that. We managed to get you two. That's the most important thing.
You ready? You ready for this? Comparison's not a thief, it's a target.
I like that.
You like that? I'm going to say
target of joy.
I'm going to say that down there. Comparison's not a thief, it's a target. There's your clip right there. I looked in the camera when I said that. No, but I think it's true. Like you can't. I think if you've got self-awareness, then you can look at people and be like, oh yeah, like you just said there. Oh yeah, I'd love to get my version of that. Not exactly that. But even with like with physiques and stuff like that, because a lot of the time it is a help. Comparison as a thief of joy is helpful when it comes to physiques, because we all know you're never going to look exactly like somebody. But it still can be helpful to be like, I'm sure people have been comparing themselves to the results from the 12-week peak last year, and saw the photo shoots and saw that gym packed with all those shredded people, and going, yeah, I want some of that. That's arguably comparison, but it's done in a healthy way. So, so as long as it's done with a bit of perspective,
there's an email on that, Chris.
It can be a target. You better believe it is.
But yeah, completely agree. I think if we can use comparison in the right way, it can be very, very helpful. But equally, like all human emotions that we were mentioned there, jealousy is part of that as well. Envy, like you should accept that you feel a little bit of that sometimes when you see things. Something I'm definitely not jealous of. My next unpopular opinion. Balenciaga shoes are a social experiment.
They're honking.
I think we all
aren't they?
agree on that.
Right, bear with me.
It's even
okay?
better with
So-
the brand, the way it's gone now.
I know.
Well, this is why I think it's a social experiment. One, I think the shoes are of an aesthetic that I think it's a test of how much are you willing to pay to demonstrate your status and your earning power that you can buy these shoes and your means. Because everyone knows they're expensive.
Yeah.
But also a lot of people, if they were to put on a George badge or a Tesco badge or even like an M&S badge, you probably wouldn't pay that money for them because it wouldn't convey the same sense of relative status and fashion that you get from buying Balenciaga. And by signaling that I can pay for these shoes, it's like it's a status thing where you're like, all right, I'm super, super powerful. But in reality, we all know that they probably look pretty dreadful, and that I don't think a fraction of people would buy those shoes if it didn't have social acclaim and status related to them. And I think the social experiment is it's a test of how much people are willing to waste. And I think it's a waste to buy these particular shoes. And the next strand to it is, with all this pedophilia stuff coming out and the kind of dark background to it, it's a test. Are you willing to stand behind this brand that you've championed for such a long time? Or are you just going to disregard the fact that they've got such a murky social status?
Everyone listening to this will agree, because no one that wears Balenciagas would listen to this.
Do you think so?
Yeah. You can let me know if you wear Balenciagas.
I think people have been. I think people
fucking watching,
fucking awful.
Probably watching CBeebies with subtitles on. Fucking dafties, man. Honestly.
I used to rant about big shoes all the fucking time.
Oh man,
like
they're
I used
brutal,
to
aren't
every story. I used to be like, "What the fuck are they?" Like I hate them. Like they're just awful looking.
Yeah.
And again, I actually was always totally against paying that much for a pair of shoes. But as of late, I've spent a stupid amount of money on a pair of trainers quite recently. Probably the most expensive piece of clothing that I've ever bought. And one, they actually look nice. Do you know what I mean? But two, like I totally did buy them I know that people with status will actually, people will comment on that. There's definitely an element of that. Same with buying a new car. There's always going to be an element of that.
I think you recognise that. I think a lot of the people that have been sucked into the Balenciaga trap do not recognise that they are part of a social experiment.
Yeah.
That they're using it to signal.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think like if you look back, there's always been examples of that. Like I remember when it's still a thing. I think if you bought like a really expensive belt and it's got the logo on the belt buckle, the only part of the t-shirt that'll be tucked in is the bit that's showing off the belt buckle. Do you know? But like I was
there's some photos of me at Jelly Baby back in the day doing just
was that a Gucci belt?
Yeah.
Is it?
I had a Hermes one as well. Yeah.
Oh, nice,
Jesus,
nice.
Bad.
Let's not go into our youthful fashion choices because I will not come out well in that conversation at all.
I was a fucking emo.
You're a wee tweet, weren't you? But I think see in terms of like status, the first thing I thought of there was like, I don't know why, but if you look at like even like tribal populations, like they literally modify their bodies. Like that doesn't look good to like having like plates in your like relatively speaking,
stretched ears and stuff like that.
Ears and things like
that.
that. But a lot of that is to do with states, and you can go back and look throughout history, like even like go back to the Chinese and they're binding their feet so that the woman's feet doesn't grow beyond a certain size. There's always been really weird displays in terms of fashion and looks of your status. But I think the Balenciaga thing is way back. I do agree. I remember I was with you the first time I realised how much Balenciagas cost, because we were in Manchester and we went into Selfridges
and I was like,
you went, there's Dale's shoes, and I went, we'll go look at these, and I went over and they were £645 and I nearly dropped a shit on the floor in Selfridges. I could not believe that people were paying that much money for those trainers.
How they looked in terms of the aesthetic,
I had a client who showed up I train modelling clients very irregularly, but I had a client 2 months ago show up to the gym in a pair of these Balenciagas, and they're called like not trail runner. What are they called? They're called like runners. They're called Balenciaga runners. She showed up in these, and I was like, you can't train in them. Like you physically cannot. They're fucking massive. They're like boats. I was like, you can't train in them. I was like, have you got socks on? She's like, I'm not got socks on. I was like, you actually can't train in them. Like they are
spongy
fucking
sole and stuff
horrendous. They're just fucking huge.
Aye.
You can't. And then she was like, oh really? I've been wearing these because they say trainers or they say trail running, whatever the fuck it says on it. Yeah, they're just god awful. That's not an unpopular opinion. Hopefully that's a popular opinion. They're fucking terrible. I wonder if their stock like plummeted then, since all this shit? Surely
I'm not sure because there was some mad conspiracy theory, wasn't there, about like the designer of the, or whoever was in charge of. I know they made some scapegoat out of somebody at some marketing agency, but whoever was in charge had made a reference to child sacrifice or paedophilia,
a lot of
in another campaign.
yeah.
There was some kind of subtle reference to it. So I mean, you'd like to think that would tank the brand, but I don't know if it will, to be honest with you. I know that people like Kim Kardashian and stuff have distance themselves,
disaffiliated,
from them. So
they'll come back with a new campaign with an extra couple mil, and she'll be back winning again. No problem at all.
Listen, hey, news cycle keeps rolling, doesn't it? People are quick to forget, man.
I do think in general, like things like that signal status, but are generally, if you did like a blind test in terms of like showed people these items without the branding on it, you'd be like, nobody's buying them.
Yeah.
Nobody, for the cost that you're putting against them, nobody's paying that. So there's a huge element of, if I'm paying £600 for a pair of trainers, I must be cool.
If you look at like wine or champagne, things like that, the amount of like tests that have been done by like what are they called, sommeliers. And they get them to taste like either the exact same wine 3 times and they just tell them it's 3 different price points, or they get them to taste multiple wines and none of them can fucking guess what the most expensive wine is. But when you're in a restaurant and you're taking a client out, for example, in your field, you're gonna order, like for me, I always go like, what's the middle one? Don't want to be the most expensive, don't want to go cheapest, I'll go middle. But a lot of people in those circumstances goes, what's the most expensive one I can buy, because it adds that status. Doesn't fucking matter if it tastes any better, because in the most part they all taste the same, similar anyway. So yeah, it's kind of similar in that sense.
It's funny, and I recognise that the pair of shoes that you've bought, David, while they were expensive and they are a signal to some extent, at least aesthetically you really like them.
Yeah,
I would pay good money to say that most people that are,
they don't like how they look, they like the status solely.
Solely the status, like, because nobody's telling me if they were George that you're buying them. Or they were a bargain, they were £5. Nobody looked terrible.
I think that's a really key point in it. It's like, do you actually like these things, or are you just buying them because wear whatever clothes you want, right? Don't listen to me, I'm not the fashion post, but like it was always a saying to me, see when brands started coming back into play, that was like that when I was a wee guy. Exactly, that's what I say. See when just for context, listeners, I'm 31 years of age, almost 32, right? When I was a wee guy, if you wore Fila, good luck. You got dog's abuse, right? Like you get slated for wearing and Alessi and all that, and like those, but then all of a sudden they became really cool again. So I do wonder, like, do you really think that's cool?
Yeah, I started wearing Aleesi shorts to Ibiza when I went on holiday there in like 2017, 2018. If you'd done that when I was in secondary school, they'd be like, why are you wearing Aleesi?
I remember in high school, everyone was getting a Lacoste trackie, like everyone. And I wasn't even one of the fucking Neds that would wear Lacoste trackies or trackies in general, but I asked my mum, I was like, get me a trackie, it needs to be Lacoste. She got me a fucking high-tech trackie.
Oh God.
And I didn't know high-tech was a shit brand, so I went to school the next day, oh man, I get fucking pounded. Gola shoes was the other ones. Everyone was getting K-Swiss. So instead of getting me K-Swiss, don't get me wrong, my mum and dad actually, we weren't skint. I didn't grow up, but mum used to spend all the money on holidays. We'd always go to holidays a year.
Your values were totally different, yeah.
And I'm so glad she done that rather than dress me in Lacoste or K-Swiss. But that was another one, Gola shoes. And I remember she wouldn't let me wear them to school, so I used to take my this is so irrelevant. I used to put on my school shoes and put my Gola shoes in my school bag, and as soon as I get through the gates I'd change into my fucking Gola shoes.
Brilliant.
Amazing. Unpopular opinion for you, Chris?
What does that mean? This actually ties in with what you were saying. This is a quote from a book that I actually recommended to you, David. Behaviour regulation is the most essential personal skill for achieving your goals. And my add-on to that quote is more essential than discipline, work ethic, all those things. So behaviour regulation.
What book's that from, Chris?
The mind.
Designing your mind. The psychitecture. It's a concept called psychitecture.
I want to read that again. That's one of the best books I've only read it once. And it's one that as soon as I read it, I was like, I'm going to come back to this and just read bits of it. It's a phenomenal book, actually. On just like changing behaviour and how you actually create behaviours as well, which is obviously relevant to that quote.
Every time I say Atomic Habits in the podcast, a klaxon goes off because I've said it so many times. But it links to behaviour change as well, doesn't it? Where if you can change how you react to different cues and stimulus, then it's going to be much better than goals or discipline or work ethic or anything like that.
I think when I first read that, the other good thing about that book is you have like really good chapter summaries. So see when you go back through it and read it, he summarises the main points at the end of each chapter. So it's one that you should always keep on you, because dipping in and out of it, especially like we were saying earlier, when maybe you're feeling a bit down or a bit sad, it's a really good one to have nearby to go in to just dip into. But I feel like, when we're that is like the foundation of everything, isn't it? Because you might say, oh, I'm really disciplined, but something out with your control can come in and fuck up your discipline. You know, like you have an issue at work, or you have a family issue, you have an argument with somebody, all of a sudden you've got these emotions that are bubbling up inside you that are just wreaking havoc with your discipline. And if you are able to control those emotions, then you are able to stay the path for longer.
Would you say there's something that you've done that's allowed you to get better at behaviour regulation, or is there things that you think people can do to better manage that? Or do you think it's very much, it stems from the beliefs when you're growing up, it stems from the influences you've had? Is it a genetic thing? Do you know what I mean?
I think this isn't something everybody can do, but for me personally, one thing that helped me was working in hospitality and dealing with difficult people, because it did help me be a bit more empathetic for a start, and it did help me stay in the moment a lot more and have a bit more presence. That's something else he talks about in the book, is about presence and awareness and being in the moment and what that actually means, because that sounds very hippy-dippy, but it actually means that you're switched on. It doesn't mean that you're floating away, into some spiritual place. It actually means that you are picking up on the signals of different people and what they're actually saying. But honestly, see off the back of that, I feel like working with Jill, who's my fiance in the business, bring her into the business, that's probably been the biggest, because we are polar opposites on certain things. So being able to, when she like perhaps have a certain take on something, my initial reaction at first, and we don't have a remotely confrontational relationship at all, but my initial reaction tends to be like, what are you talking about? What does that mean in my head? But I had enough of it to slow down and be like, all right, okay, this is what I think this is what you mean. And then I would ask her, so do you mean this? And then it turned into more of a conversation, rather, because before, if I didn't control my emotions, I would have just been angry or confused or dismissive, which is not helping anybody. So I feel like that helps.
So do you think it's consistently exposing yourself to people, views, places, things that have got a different opinion from you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm with you on that. Like hiring Emma, my assistant, last October, Emma's completely fucking different from me. Like completely different worldview. Maybe not completely different, but like very different worldviews. She grew up on a farm. Her family are farmers. She's very shy when you first meet her. Maybe not once you get to know her, but she's very shy in that regard. And bringing her into the business and working with her pretty closely over the last years allowed me to kind of see holes in some of my behaviours. Like I'm so fucking impatient. Like it's horrendous. You'll know from working with me. Like if I get an idea in my head, like I want it done then, even if I'm just exposing someone to that idea. Same with Emma. I'm like, why have you not done that? I told you about it 4 minutes ago. I'm really bad for that. And I suppose my behaviour regulation in that regard needs to definitely improve. Like I'm super impatient with her in that regard, but being exposed to that's allowing me to see that I'm like that, because I notice these things. But again, I've got quite good self-awareness. Some people maybe don't. But yeah, super interesting. I like that one.
Yeah, environment design is the big part of behaviour change, isn't it? So like, and a big part of that is what you've just mentioned there. The people you surround yourself with is a huge part of your environment, isn't it? They probably have some of the largest input to it. Yeah,
but I feel like sometimes like that can get misconstrued. I would say like, expose yourself to people, or like surround yourself with people that do think different from you, but make sure you like them. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like, again, if you consume a lot of the content online and it's all a bit like, if you get into the whole, again, debate sphere, and it's like, we need to go to college campuses and debate all these big issues and, I'm right, you're left, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that is a shit show, right? You're never gonna learn behaviour regulation that way. Yeah. But I feel like you say, like you and Emma get on great. Me and Jill, well, my fiance, like, you know what I mean? Like, so that's so you have to have some kind of like level. Respect for the person, totally. So you can actually, because you and I are quite different in some regards as well, because that's like I'm not just saying this to make you feel better, but one thing, I am a little bit slower to action than you, whereas you're like, you have an idea and you do it, and that's something I've picked up for you. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't actually just sit on something, maybe I should just go and do it and get it out in the world. So I feel like, again, like a lot of times with Jill, when we've been discussing ways to grow the business or what we want from our life and how we're going to get it, she'll come in with a completely different opinion sometimes and a new take, and that's been a huge for me. But again, it's not some half-wit on Twitter behind an avatar. It's somebody that I love and respect. So I think that's a key element to that. You can't just be any old person.
Yeah, because of course I think the popular opinion that's critiquing would be that it's all about your goals, it's all about your discipline, it's all about your mindset. Whereas we're talking here about behavior management and overseeing that. No, I think we can get on board with that. Mr. Hatt, you're up.
I'm gonna go. I suppose relating to business coaches, you need more than 6 months of running a successful business before you become a business coach. And I'm relating this to fitness business because fitness business coaches are amongst the worst people on earth, in my opinion. Maybe not the worst people on earth, but they infuriate me.
I think they're
so yeah, unpopular opinion, you need a lot more experience than generally what people have before they launch a fitness business, mentorship or whatever you want to call it. And the same goes for life coaches that are under the age of 35. Age doesn't need to be the most important factor, but you need to have lived a fucking life to be giving someone life advice, in my opinion. I'm not going to take advice from an 18-year-old on how to live my life. I'm much more likely to take that from someone older and older, like my granddad is 87. I would take advice all fucking day from him. He's been through literally the wars. I would take advice from him all day long. And the same goes from fitness business. Like you've ran a successful fitness business for 6 months, and by that it means you've got 40 clients, you've got a few results, and now you want to teach other people how to do that. You shouldn't be fucking doing it. You need to spend an extended period of time developing that skill, in my opinion, and just basically like showing that you can do it for a long period of time. We've all had levels of success in our life on whims. We all have. I've launched programs that I didn't think would do well and they randomly blow up. That doesn't mean I can consistently do that. You need to learn how to manage those things over time.
Yeah, completely agree. I think the popular opinion you're pushing back on there is that, I should diversify my business and offer mentoring and stuff like that. And that's a popular thing to do at the moment. Yeah. But pushing back against that, I think, is completely reasonable because it does seem like every Tom, Dick and Harry is suddenly now a business coach. Yeah.
And you work with a lot of them. In fact, you work with two guys that, I suppose, what do they call themselves? The anti-business coaches.
Well, they actually go out the episode before this. So at the time of recording, Dan and Mike will go out tomorrow.
But what I actually love and respect about Dan and Mike is, one, they're actually still running a fitness business, which a lot of business coaches say, how can you be doing that? You need to be putting all your emphasis into your business mentorship clients. I actually disagree for the short term. I think you should actually learn how to manage both. And it's just, things change so much with fitness. Like genuinely, they actually do with like how to run a fitness business. There's new apps comes out. There's different ways to do check-ins. Like, there is ever changing things. And if you're not really in those trenches or you've got a good handle of what's going on, I don't see how you can offer the best advice in that respect.
Yeah. I feel like this has been a product of the kind of online education boom over the past few years,
which I love. Like,
I think it's phenomenal. I wouldn't know what I know now. I wouldn't be where I am now without it. Like I have everything I've learned about like copywriting has all been through invested in these different courses and things like that. But like anything else, there is always going to be a downside. And I think one of the downsides is when a lot of people are like, say like you are a course creator and you show people how to create courses, that's your thing. Yeah. And it's like, well, you have knowledge in your head that's valued and it's $500,000. Yeah. Let me unlock it for you. And you're like, well, that's not really how it works. Because like a personal example is I could potentially, well, not potentially, I've had a few people reach out, like aspiring copywriters, ask me to mentor them. I would never do that. Not interested. I just send them all to a guy who's been on this podcast, Mike Samuels. I just say, go do Mike's course or go join his mastermind group if he's got slots open. He's the guy that taught me. He's the guy that contributed most to where I am today. Yeah. Go learn off him. And that's not me getting on a moral high horse. It's just a bit of being a realist. Yeah. You know, just because I know what it's like to go from like zero at copywriting to having the business I have now doesn't mean that I can show other people how to do it. And very quickly, a very specific example. See the first kind of higher ticket client I ever got? I was scrolling through Facebook when I should have been working and saw a job post in a Facebook group and applied for it. I've told that story before about the burnt chicken video and all of that. Yeah. Right? How do I teach somebody that? Yeah. How do I teach? How do I replicate that? I don't know, maybe getting too in the weeds, but you can see like what you're saying, like just because you're
it's very specific what you did there, and it was applied in that setting. Yeah, like again, I've probably spoken about this before as well. But when I first started doing new business and work, the first year, myself, my Welsh colleague did really, really well, and the second year, my Welsh colleague was coaching everyone else how to do new business sales in terms of cold calling, emails. But he was like from the valleys in Wales, a place called Aberdare, mad as a hatter. He'd open cold calls with like jokes and stuff like that. And I know for a fact that I couldn't do that. Yeah. But other people were being coached by this guy and it was all super specific in terms of how he did things and how he did his proposals and how he did his presentations. And people were like, I can't sell like this guy because he was unique and brilliant at what he did. So in the same way that you did a particular kind of video to your first high ticket client, you can't be like everyone, you're all going to be mini Chris Burns and all going to try and do it in this way. And that's what I think is being forced on the industry now. All become mini, whatever, insert coach's name.
Yeah, I just think you need to put in more of the groundwork for a longer period of time before you go and teach that to someone else, because you need to fuck up more. You need to make way more mistakes. Yeah,
because I still have like I actually got an email last week because I done a few like trainings for Mike's group, and apparently like, people are still using them. And I do have many people saying like, oh, you know, I landed a client using your training. Yeah. And people would say, oh, that's proof that you can then go turn it into a course. I'm like, no, it's not. Yeah. I'm sorry, for me, the standard is just much higher, probably because I have seen more of the good side of online education than the bad side. So I have learned from people who have over-delivered for me pretty much. I can only think of one thing I invested in that was a shit show, right? That's it. But apart from that, it's all been great. And I'm like, well, that's the standard that I hold myself to. So if I can't reach that, if somebody gets a one-off, some kind of training I've got out there in a kind of private group, fantastic. That's why I put it in there. That I was asked to do it. But apart from that, you can't just go about selling your knowledge, as people like to say.
Agreed.
Nonsense.
Okay, my unpopular opinion. A lot of people have no idea why they believe what they believe. So if you cannot state what information you would have to read or consume that would allow you to change your viewpoint on something, then you do not have a opinion or a belief. You have like an ideological like faith in something. So for example, you should be able to, what you would call steelman the opposition's argument and understand why they come from that and obviously critique it. But equally, if they came to you with a new piece of information, you should acknowledge that particular information might be able to shift where your viewpoint is. Otherwise, you are just radically entrenched. And it links to a Jeff Bezos phrase, which is around holding your strong opinions loosely, not loose opinions held strongly. Yeah. So if I have a particularly strong opinion on how a podcast should be conducted or how a fitness program should be structured, there needs to be evidence behind it. However, if somebody brought me evidence to the contrary that was of sufficient merit and depth, then I should be completely comfortable to acknowledge that I'm going to change my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's an incredibly hard thing for a lot of people to articulate though, I would say. So like whatever your belief is, if somebody, why do you believe that? I think, and I would struggle with that personally. I'd be like, why do it? You know, it would take a lot. I think it takes a lot of thinking. I think it takes an incredibly intelligent or articulate person to actually like vocalize why it is they believe that. You are very data numerical. Like you've kind of got that going on in your brain. I think a lot of people would struggle to just pull that out. And you're actually similar in that respect. You could pull a lot of that just from there. A lot of people, in my opinion, would really struggle with just having that information ready to hand without going, I need to go and think about that. Do you know what I mean?
You should be allowed to go and think about it, definitely. But I think if you have a particular belief or an opinion on a matter, and if somebody came to you with evidence to the contrary and you just completely disregarded it offhand straight away, I think you are too radically entrenched. And I think we have a lot of that in today's society where people they're left or they're right or they're whatever the like party line we can split it down. People are very, very entrenched in where their opinions are, whereas I think there's got to be nuanced ground somewhere in the middle, where particularly if somebody brought you something that was of interest or pushed back a little bit on it, you should be accepting of, oh well, actually that could change my opinion to some extent, and you're not just indoctrinated in a particular ideology.
Totally. I've changed so many of my beliefs this year alone, and I think that has just exposed myself to more views, like we talked about a minute ago, and I think that's been a massive thing, but also maybe just expose myself to people that are fucking way wiser than me, which is most people. But like consistently listening to people that have, I can't say that I've read tons of Nietzsche, I've not read loads of Aristotle, I've not read all that shit, but I've relied on people that I like, trust and respect to almost relay that information back to me for me to say, but I believe this because of this, and because this person believes it because of that. I suppose that's how a lot of my beliefs are definitely created.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've changed my mind, maybe not on something quite as kind of deep as that, but like I've changed my mind a lot on like the kind of how brand affects marketing and sales, you know, because unfortunately one of the things you learn when you come into copywriting a lot of times is like all of those brand and marketing people are all just dicking about doing nothing. And by the way, some of that's true, right? Some people are 100% stealing a wage, right? But branding's still very, very important. I mean, you just look around you, you know, it's clearly still important. So I think like in the past year or so, I've read into more about that and I've learned more about it, and I've realised like just because I come from the direct response, which is arguably like the sharp end of the spear, as like Mark, I can't remember his name, sorry. escaped me. He's one of the kind of foremost kind of marketing experts who does a kind of alternate MBA on marketing, and he talks about that's the tip of the spear, but there's so much more going on. You've seen that with MTN, you know, the growth of that brand, your personal brand as well, because you know the benefits of that, whereas I was quite kind of dismissive of that before, but whereas new information was brought to me and I kind of opened my eyes a wee bit and I went, yeah, I've kind of got a bit too entrenched in my own wee direct response copywriting world there. You know, there's a bigger world out there and there's more going on. It's probably maybe better at my job as a result of that, because I probably get more respect for those things when I'm working with clients. So, so yeah, that's something that I definitely changed my mind on.
I just think it's pushing people to be open-minded enough to change their mind. So you were in a position where, yes, you had your existing biases, Chris, that you were leaning into in terms of like within your copywriting world, you were saying, but by getting new information that came to light, you were like, actually, I'm willing to shift my opinion and maybe some of my actions. And then I've moved to a better place because somebody's presented me with the right information to allow me to do that. Yeah.
And listen, I don't want to paint myself as some kind of super enlightened guy. That was easy to change my mind on that because it helped me grow my business, right? If somebody came to me with some opinion, so like if you want to give like a more controversial one, if somebody came to me with an example of saying like, no, actually like socialism's actually a really good idea, I'd be like, bolt mate, get out of here. No chance. Like I probably wouldn't listen to them. Genuinely, I wouldn't listen to them. I could back it up.
What if you liked them? What if Jill came to you with that?
What's that?
What if Jill came to you?
That'd be...
I'd have to be very convincing.
I'd have to call upon my behaviour regulation in that in that particular scenario. Nah, she's a big dirty capitalist.
What have you changed your mind on, David?
Do you know what? One of them's actually the one that sprung to mind was my belief around productivity and that I had to always be productive, things like that. That's probably the biggest one that stuck out just because we spoke about
Who helped shift that for you?
Oh, Alex Hormozy. Somebody actually got me in my Secret Santa a framed picture of Alex Hormozy, but he's somebody that consistently springs to my mind about behaviour change and belief change because of what he says on it, and I suppose the beliefs that he's just said a lot of things that I've consumed so much of this guy's content this year, and I've changed a lot of my thoughts on sales, marketing, brand, everything based on that. And it's again because trust, like I can see the success that he's had as well. So yeah, I think the productivity one not necessarily being or unproductivity not being a bad thing. It's probably one of the biggest beliefs that I've changed this year.
Yeah, and if you were super close-minded, you wouldn't have accepted that at all.
Yeah, you would have doubled down. Productive all of the time.
Yeah, interesting. Sure. Chris, unpopular opinion.
So I've got don't be too salesy for coaches and things, and I think this is the most infuriating thing we've ever spoken about on this podcast for me. It just...
My next one might link in perfectly.
It fucking does my nutting, you know. Because here's the thing. Here's what it really is, right? It's coaches, be it business coaches in there. Business coaches don't really do this, to be fair, in the fitness space, but a lot of coaches who have had years of success built off their own brand and years of being a coach, you know, and being on different platforms back when the expos were big and magazines were big. And then going back and telling the newer generation of coaches that things like you shouldn't be too salesy in your content, you shouldn't use pain points in your content, giving out this marketing and sales advice, which is taking money out their pockets. It's stopping them from growing their business, and it's fucking infuriating because it is nothing more than a kind of self-serving statement that they use as a stepping stone to get up on a high horse. That's all it is. You know, I never use pain points in my marketing. I never sell myself. I've just got people battering down my door. I'm like, that's okay for you, 10 years in the industry, results coming out your arse, and like, you know, all the network that anybody could ever ask for. But if you're a new coach or if you're building your business, like, would you have been able to build your business the way it is without selling?
You need to ask for the business.
Well, I've maybe got a weird opinion on this because I've had success in the era that was maybe easier to generate leads, maybe. Yeah. But like my actual unpopular opinion, I'm not. They both link in. Great. Is that if you focus on great marketing, you actually don't need to sell as much. And I know that marketing is selling to a degree, but what I mean by that is like cold outreach, things like that. I've never done any of those forms of selling. I've always just had very good branding, very good marketing, and people have came to us and just bought. We've rarely, and I know you could say, that the sales page is selling them, the whatever else is selling them, but my opinion on that is like, and probably just anecdotal because of the success we've had from a lead standpoint without being like top salespeople. I can count on both fingers, both hands, how many sales calls I've been on. I've never used that as an aspect to sell anything. It's always been through having really good fucking marketing. Thanks, Chris. So I totally. What was the actual unpopular opinion?
Yeah, it's like, don't be too salesy with your, you know, as a coach, or don't use pain
but his
points.
marketing is salesy. It's hitting on pain points. It's driving you towards getting you ready to buy, and then he's going to present an offer. He's going to ask for it.
I'm looking at sales in a different light. I'm looking at sales as in cold outreach, things like that, like because I'm totally not against that. It's just not the type of marketing or sales.
It doesn't tie in with who you are and what intends about.
And it's maybe something we need to do more of, cold outreach, things like that. But I just hate that world, to be fair. I just don't like it. It's probably just uncomfortable for me. Yeah,
that's true. But here's what it really comes down to for me is we've seen people give this advice, especially to coaches, because I work with a lot of coaches in like my copy clinic and stuff, and I'm in a few groups with coaches that get business coaching, so I help them with email marketing. What you're saying to them is ignore human nature. And that's mental, right? Oh, really? We're going to ignore human nature, are we? Yeah. What a fantastic idea that is, because people are always going to be more motivated to move away from pain than they are towards pleasure. Yeah. That is something that is universally true. There's no getting away from that. Yeah. So let's ignore the reality of this person's situation and just expect them to somehow wander into our coaching program. Or, you know, it's just, even though you're saying there, you're absolutely bang on, like your marketing has always been really good, even before we worked together. But your content, you were so consistent, and all your content was based around, even though you didn't know it, pain points. Yeah. Because I remember back in the day where your Instagram was flying and you were in Dubai and you had, you know, pictures of you looking shredded in Dubai, and it was all these long captions and everyone was getting hundreds of likes. Yeah. Everyone was solving a pain point. Yeah. Everyone was talking about getting lean. Everyone was talking about getting fat loss, achieving fat loss, feeling confident. So it was all pain point focused. Because that's what people care about. That's what people react to.
And then leading to a solution that you were happy to put forward. Whereas there's people that are being discouraged from being salesy, and they're afraid to talk about the pain points. They're afraid to say that I've got a solution that can help you. Instead, they're just hoping that their email inbox will get battered down with clients.
Would you say there's a ratio? So from a marketing perspective, for any like content creator or like anyone that has a product, would you say there's a ratio of like just solely value versus sales, or do you think they always need to be kind of interlinked?
I think you should always be selling. Yeah. I think you should always be selling, but I think you should, the majority of the time, it's going to be a softer sell. Yeah. And then there's going to be times of the year where you're doing a more harder, like direct sell. Like that. You know? So like, always give a call to action, because see, here's the other thing. I done a reel on this probably about 6 months ago, because I'm not posting on Instagram that long. But but like when you think about value, and I'll give credit, there's a guy called Daniel Throssell who everybody should be on his email list, because he's one of the best copywriters on the planet. But like, he talks about value and he talks about entertainment. Like, being entertaining is part of giving value. Yeah. Coaches think value is like talking about protein synthesis or the clavicular angle of your pecs and an inclined bench or some stupid shit like that, right?
With a band around it.
That'll trigger a few people, right? There we go. So I think like what you're saying there is like bang on. If you're giving value in terms of entertainment, solutions, speaking to pain points, giving them some kind of relief from that pain point, give a call to action. Go sign up to an email list. Go download this. Yeah. Send me a DM. There should always be some kind of sale to nurture that relationship and move it forward in there. Yeah. Nobody's going to be annoyed at that. No, like nobody's going to think, oh, fuck, that post was amazing. It's held my attention on Instagram, where I can go in a million different directions, but I've watched your reel or read your post or read your email. But now that you've given me a link to download, I'm going to unsubscribe or fuck you, and I'm going to send you an abusive message. That's never going to happen. Yeah. And just one more very quick point on this. See, when it comes to like, you know, like I said about not ignoring human nature and about the pain points, here's the other side to it. See, if you actually address people's pain points, they don't feel upset, they don't feel manipulated, they just feel seen and heard. And because you're the one that's made them feel seen and heard, you're the coach for them. Yeah. You're the guy that's going to get them the solution. It's not about manipulating, because business coaches use it all the time. Oh, if you don't sign up for my program, you're going to be destitute. And I've heard some horror stories about people being pressured to use their inheritance money from their dead mother to invest in business coaching, right? I've heard some absolute howlers. That's not what I'm talking about here. That's not what it is. Pain points are about making sure people are seen and heard by you, who could be their coach.
Yeah, well put. And yours was linked to that, David, in terms of the marketing being on point.
Yeah, marketing just being, again, this is just my experience, because you get people that are proper good salespeople that would say the opposite. I just like selling. I can sell anything. Whereas we've always just focused on having really good marketing, really good branding, and people coming to us. But don't get me wrong, I think if we got better at selling like directly, that's maybe something that we could add in, as well as like book a call. It's something I just never offer, book a call. I'm always just like, we're pretty much full, or this program's launching these dates, like sign up now.
Join the email list for more information.
And then they sign up. Like, that's definitely something that is maybe a belief that I need to change. I think I need to become a better direct salesperson, as I have been like building marketing skills, things like that.
Yeah, agreed. Do you want to talk about this one, Chris?
Yeah.
I'll let Chris talk. I'll let Chris introduce it.
Right. So
we're ganging up on you,
ganging
David.
up you,
I'm
David.
right with that.
Right.
I'll have a comeback.
Right. Public accountability isn't for everyone. It's certainly not for two guys sitting around this table.
Yeah.
But it is for one of us.
It is for me. I've always been big on telling people what I'm gonna do, and mostly because when I used to do it, I used to work and I used to stick to it. So, for example, telling people, like I did a bodybuilding show in 2017. I'm gonna compete. This was 4 months previous to that. I'm gonna compete. I'm gonna do a show in 4 months' time. I put it out there because of the fear of looking stupid if I didn't do it, and the fear of looking, maybe not stupid's probably just the best word. Whereas I done it actually quite recently in the sense of I was like, I'm not going to drink for 12 weeks. I put it out there to the world, done 15 YouTube videos on it, 5 reels, 6 Instagram posts, lasted 5 weeks, and I get absolutely fucked one day. And do you know what? It worked in the sense of like, it got me started, it got me going, it got actually a conversation started surrounding that. But did I feel stupid come week 5 when I fucked it? 100%. So like, it was a negative in that sense, but maybe so much of a negative that I'll continue to use public accountability and look back on that. How did you feel when you actually didn't stick to what you said you were going to do?
You're in a good situation where you have a following and you have an engaged following who might call you out on it.
Yeah.
I think some people who shout about it on social media to their 300 friends and family that are following them, how many of them are going to come back and say, I can't believe you didn't compete in that show? Like I was talking to Elliot Wise in the podcast. It's funny the way release dates work, but the last episode they got released. And I was saying to him that he coaches a lot of, mentors a lot of business owners, and lots of them will shout about big things coming 2023 and like the eye emojis. Yeah. And then when the big things don't come, nobody in their audience is like, I can't believe the big thing didn't come because they don't care enough. Like the Sahil Bloom spoke about the spotlight effect on the podcast. We all assume that the spotlight is more on us than it is. Yeah. So like if I follow 700 people on Instagram, best believe I'm not fully engaged what every single one of them has said, and I don't necessarily remember. I remember you saying you were going to do 12 weeks sober because it was a change in habit. It was, and you talked about it a lot, and we're all and we speak about it, and we speak a lot as well. So I was able to like be aware that was going to happen. But there's probably other people I've seen that like I'm going to do a shoot in June next year, and it doesn't happen, and I'm not, and probably none of their audience are going to be on at them saying I can't believe you didn't do that. So for them, public accountability doesn't work. But they got an element of mental masturbation when they announced it because people were probably like, that's amazing. So they get the positive feedback loop without the action, which is one of the reasons that we're in a bit of a social media addiction, a bit of a dopamine kind of detox environment that we probably need to get away from it a little bit because people are just announcing things and throwing it out there without any of the action, and they get the initial praise, but nobody's holding them to it because maybe they don't have a coach, maybe they don't have a mentor, maybe they don't have a group of friends that will say, you said you were going to do that and you didn't fucking do it, or you said you were going to do it and you said you were going to do it to this standard, but you actually did it to this standard.
Yeah, I've definitely fallen into that trap, and I'll consistently do it. I think I've just always done that. I've always put out what I'm going to do way ahead of doing it, mostly because I've almost always then achieved it. So like I think I've done it with almost all my goals. Like most people know what I'm looking to achieve, things like that, because I generally put them out there. So I think you need to back up I think you need a consistent period of backing up what you're putting out there, so that when you do put something out there, like everyone knows you're going to achieve it, or they're kind of
you've got a track record.
In that
that's funny because interestingly, the other person that talks about this a lot online that is in David's camp is Jamie Alderton, who was Grenade J. He announces like the different world record attempts he's going to do and stuff like that, and he finds it tremendously motivating to say that he's going to do it. Equally, he shows you his cold dip every morning in his Instagram story or in his reels because he knows that people are watching. Now he's in a position where he's got a massive audience where people would genuinely, because of the number of people that are there, somebody would check in and be like, "Why are you not doing that?" In the same way that you probably got people saying, "David, you drank that night."
When I was doing the 10k a day, like I had messages every day, like, "Oh, have you done that yet?" Like people kind of poking fun as well. I've seen that you.
For those that
yesterday.
Didn't see that, that was the time.
It was like 10 kilometers a day cardio every day for 60 days. And that one I actually did do. But yeah, I think like I did have, and I've not got a big following by, on the most part, but I did have people reaching out going, "Oh, have you done that today?" Or like, "I think I've seen that you missed yesterday. You're going to do another one today?" Like things like that. So I did have that.
Holding you to it.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas if you've not got that audience or that kind of interaction level, you wouldn't necessarily get that.
Chris, public accountability for you?
Nope. Never tried it, never will.
But you're the least public person I know about any aspect of your life. No, genuinely though. If you look at me, if you look at like, I'm a total overshare. Like, if people follow me and you, and they follow me and you for the exact same time frame, they know a lot more about me than they do you.
100%.
Through choice,
Yeah, through choice. And I think that's just always how I've kind of went about building my brand and like stories for me, like Instagram stories. Like I use them so frequently.
Got a lot of success though, because when you started putting yourself out there, especially in like your kind of local area, like you became like very popular PT, so like you got a lot of engagement, and then I imagine that probably helped public accountability work for you.
Yeah, of course.
But like with me, like you say, I would say by nature more of a private, reserved person, like online anyway, not in person, but online I'm much more back. So I just don't get anything from it, and I also don't have. So like, see your audience is much closer to what you're doing, and so see even more like the Sober October or like the 10k a day thing, people can relate to that more. Whereas I'm like, I'm trying to build a
corporate is much more.
Build a direct response cooperating agency. People like
less people know what that is. Then
and they wouldn't know what actions he need to take. Whereas they know he needs to be on his rower or his bike. Yeah,
exactly. So they care more about that. You just and I don't follow other copywriters like on purpose because they're fucking boring. Right, like I only follow like 2, like, but I just so I'm not getting anybody in the audience that really gets it. So like I talk to you about it, I talk to you in person, talk to you about it in person and things, and when we meet. But public accountability is never going to be.
That's accountability to people that you know are going to say to you. Because I'm going to say to you, Chris, how'd you get on with that client?
Yeah, exactly.
You were telling me you were having a difficult conversation with. I'm going to be like, oh, how did that go?
Yeah.
So is public accountability then counting as to the masses, or could it be? Because I mean, you'll tell me things that you're going to achieve to me, because you know that I understand it. You know, like. Is that different from me announcing to?
I think so. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
That's more like connected, isn't it?
Yeah.
The looser ties that you've got with social media, that's a much tighter tie, because he's going to WhatsApp you, whereas the 11,000 people that are seeing your story, are they
WhatsApp me.
Yeah,
some of them do actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Just blows up.
I never share anything because my Instagram's now very much more about like helping coaches.
Yeah,
there's no point in me sharing anything about business, so nobody knows anything about my, which might have to change, but nobody knows anything about my business on my Instagram because it's not relevant to my audience. My coaches come to me for copywriting advice, to write better emails, to make more money, make more sales. They don't give a toss how my agency's doing.
Well, here's a good thing then about public accountability, in the sense of when I did fuck it with boozing, so many people replied to that story saying, this is great, you're a human being. So what that was complete relatability with my audience.
Yeah, there you go.
So it works in that sense. So I actually just done 12 weeks sober so that I could fuck it up. No joke. But yeah, so many people messaged me that weekend being like, oh, I'm so glad that you, because I could have just told everyone that I did do it. I could have just been like, yeah, I done the 12 weeks sober. It was great. But I didn't. I was like, I went out, fucking peer pressure got the better of me, and I absolutely got smashed, and it was a great time. But people totally respected that. People are like, oh, this is so relatable. I've been trying to like give up fast food. I've been trying to give up booze as well, whatever. So there was that like level of relatability. So it kind of helped in a sense of building engagement and
trust as well, because you didn't lie
with the audience. Yeah, exactly. So it's all just a big fact.
Agreed.
Jokes.
I'll do one really quickly, then we'll do Christmas ones.
Cool.
Consistency is not the be all and the end all. Quality is important too. So I see a lot of people being like, oh, you just need to consistently show up on Instagram and post. You just need to consistently release podcasts. There's that whole stat that I share quite a lot, is that basically 80% of podcasts are gone by episode 21. Gone completely. So straight away, you're in the top 20%. This podcast has had the benefit of getting into top 1.5%. So there's a difference between just being consistent and an element of quality as well. Now, there's people that are the 1.5% above me, that their quality is higher than mine and their consistency is higher than mine. But I've got to recognize that, because I can consistently show up every Sunday and post a podcast. But if the quality of it's not high, then I wouldn't be it wouldn't have had the relative merit that it's had. So I think that people mistake sometimes that just consistently doing the same things is the same as doing things on a high level consistently. So if you had one of your clients training, David, and they were like, I've been to the gym 6 days a week for the last 6 weeks, I've seen no changes. The quality of their training sessions is probably garbage. So I think some people just massively index on, you just need to be consistent. You could be consistently doing the wrong things, or things at a really low functioning level.
I would say that you need to be consistent to learn the quality. So I think you need to put a lot of time in with being like, your podcasts have only got better because you've consistently done them. You didn't, if you just posted once every 6 weeks, you wouldn't kind of get the feedback the same way to improve them as you would by doing them on a weekly basis. So I do think they're both important. Consistency and the quality of what you're putting out is important, but I think to actually learn how to get higher quality workouts, to learn how to get higher quality podcasts, you kind of need to do them really consistently, and even have some really shit ones to improve them in that sense. Or that you need to have the self-awareness to improve on things, because some people consistently do stuff that's consistently bad.
But, so I've gone to so many different gyms over the years, and sometimes I'll occasionally go back to one, and it'll be one that I last trained in like 2016. Now I am bigger and leaner than I was in 2016, but there'll be people there that I know go 5 days a week, the same number of days that I've gone for the same number of years, and they look the exact same.
Yeah. Because
the quality and the intensity of their work has been of a low level.
Yeah.
Equally, there's podcasters that have probably released the same number of episodes as me, but haven't, touch wood, had the same standard of guests, the same number of downloads, the same number of ratings on Apple or Spotify, whatever. And that's because their quality or the standard that they've worked towards has not been as high. Equally, there's people that have done 20 podcasts and they're miles ahead of me in terms of their standard of guest. Maybe their network's better, but I'm not comparing myself to them because their quality's higher. Yeah. If you ultimately look at it, maybe they record in the studio every week, whereas a lot of mine are over or Zoom or StreamYard. So I need to recognize that my quality isn't as high as those guys, and that's okay. But I also need to recognize that it's not just consistency that's going to allow me to compete with them or overtake them. Yeah,
like if you consistently just done it over Zoom, you wouldn't have had the same level of growth, perhaps. Perhaps.
Depends. I one of the reasons that I'm confident that's not the case is because I've not just stuck to my own goldfish bowl. I've interviewed people across the world. Like, there was no way I had the budget to fly over and interview Sahil Bloom in New York, but he's probably one of the biggest guests that you can get at the moment, which is pretty cool. And I've got the reassurance that Chris Williamson built Modern Wisdom pretty much entirely
he did that.
over Skype. Skype actually, of all things. His first Jordan Peterson episode was over Skype, and it did however many million plays or whatever.
But then there was that over COVID as well.
Yeah, of course. So there's an element of that as well. But like recognizing that you can do things really consistently, but the quality of it's got to be high. Otherwise, you are just kidding yourself on.
I think what you said there about like having the awareness of being like the consistency is absolutely. I was actually talking to somebody about this today about their copywriting, and like they were determined to get better at it. And he's like, I've set myself aside 2 hours every day to get better, and it's like, don't put yourself under that pressure, mate. Half an hour. Do half an hour consistently, but assess your work. So I think as long as you're assessing what you're doing consistently, so you can then improve it. Because like you said, there's no magic to consistency. You don't just get better by being consistent.
You need back work, don't you?
You need to actually go and obviously for me, for like copywriting, if I'm looking at my work, if I'm just showing up and writing every day, not looking at work again, it's never going to get better. I'm never going to spot the holes in it. You know, same with your training, you don't spot like where was that really 3 reps in reserve, or could I have went harder there? You know, sort of that whole thing. So as long as you're assessing your consistency.
Let's do our Christmas unpopular opinions. Chris, you want to start?
Yep.
Are people going to turn off after this?
Probably. Right. Nah. I'll go last then, so people listen to the end of this episode.
Yeah, you go last. I'll go next.
Right, go.
David's so selfish. My unpopular. No, we're trying to keep the viewers safe as long as I can.
I'll go first. Spotlight on me.
You go then.
Public accountability.
I would say, I'm trying to think of how to word mine. Right. Christmas should be a week-long event, not a month-long event.
Fucking yes.
Okay, and why is that?
Because everyone switches off from business, from training, from dieting, from fucking living a normal life over the full month of Christmas. That most people lose a month. Like, they start winding down work-wise, they start winding down training-wise. And I know this firsthand from clients. I've coached clients for the last 8 years. This year, I'm coaching the smallest number of clients right now, but this has been the worst year that I'm looking at across the board. And I actually think it's related to COVID and the fact that people missed out for 2 years of family and Christmas, things like that. But fuck me, like, people are going on Christmas nights out and like the 1st of December, people are stopping training, stopping dieting, stopping making progress in their life for a month.
Some of my clients in the corporate world have been on a go slow since December. Some of the suppliers that we source our furniture from have been on a go slow, and I cannot, like, I remember like you that it was typically a week. Like
10 days max.
Yeah. See, here's some life advice, right? Have less pals, because you get invited to nights out from the first week in December, or have less pals, or start saying no to things.
Yeah.
If that, you know what I mean? Because like, see if you get invited to a night out every week or every weekend, and then that's why people start to slow down, isn't it? Because like, I've got a night out on Thursday, then I'm out at the weekend.
My football team, I've got this, I've got
that. Start saying no to things. Now, antisocial behaviour comes easy to me.
Yeah. But you could go to some of them sober as well, like David was saying in some of his events.
I mean, like you say, when you put it that way, it is actually, I know it sounds like we're all being a bit miserable, but like when you put it that way, you write off a whole month. Like, that's quite scary, isn't it? Really, like a whole month is just
gone. The worst, even the biggest worst part is Kirsty wanting to watch Christmas films for a month straight. I can deal with a week, but a month for fucking Christmas films. I've managed to swerve all of them so far, to be fair.
Right. It'll start what, 2 days out?
Oh, she's been watching them for the last fucking 6 weeks.
What about decorations? Because you know the 12 days of Christmas actually start on like Christmas Eve. So traditionally your tree would have gone up on Christmas Eve through until the 6th of January. So the 12 days would be Christmas to New Year, and then the first 6 days of New Year, and then the tree comes down.
Another thing to make me sound like a total cunt, I fucking hate having a Christmas tree in my living room. I stay in a 2-bed flat. It's not that big. See the size of a Christmas tree? Again, sorry Kirsty if you're listening to this, that she's bought for this flat. It's half my living room's just taken up, and then the other half's just fucking parcels everywhere. That's just a gripe for me, but I probably just need to buy a bigger house.
Motivation there for you.
There you go.
I'll do a food one quick before we go back on to you, Chris. I don't think Christmas dinners should include Yorkshire puddings.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
So Yorkshire puddings are a Sunday roast.
Oh, fuck off.
Yep. They shouldn't be a Christmas dinner.
Nah, Christmas
I've
dinners
never had Yorkshire puddings with Christmas. I didn't know people had Yorkshire puddings with Christmas dinner.
Until this year I didn't either.
I didn't know that.
Nah, Christmas dinner.
I've never the Christmas dinner with Yorkshire puddings.
Christmas dinner is just a Sunday roast on roids. That's exactly what that is.
I've never.
Therefore, you just have more Yorkies, more pig. So I have pigs and blankets year round though.
Oh, do you?
I love them whenever. But then I also
Really?
make a roast every single fucking Sunday. So I have a strong opinion on this.
You think Yorkshire puddings should be at Christmas dinner?
100%. Why shouldn't they be? They're one of the best parts of a roast dinner. Why wouldn't you include it?
I don't think it's a roast dinner, but you think it's a roast dinner on steroids.
No.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I don't know.
I can't believe you both agree on this.
No, I'm sitting. I've just
never
found
had
out.
them?
I've just
You've
found
never
out
had-
that
yeah.
this is a thing.
So what does your Christmas dinner consist of?
So we do 4 courses.
Turkey's
so,
also fucking terrible.
well,
Tell me it's
we
turkey.
we actually have chicken and ham. We used to. My mum basically changed the turkey for chicken at some point in our childhood because she said it was too dry and just never told us. So we have 2 meats.
You'd be gutted, would you?
I know exactly, but some people are so attached. Like, listen, people are fuming about. You're angry about this Yorkshire pudding thing, but 2 meats, chicken and ham. Like, mum's ridiculous. Like 4 different variations of potato, loads of different veg, but there's no Yorkshire puddings. No, there's like stuffing
and cranberry sauce.
Yeah.
Oh wait, you get chicken though, so maybe not.
It's an option.
Oh, sorry, chicken.
I know.
But no, there's no Yorkshire puddings. But on like New Year's Eve, if we were having like roast beef, we would have Yorkshire puddings. Or if we're having steak pie, would we have?
Would
we have Yorkshire puddings? No, we wouldn't. No, we wouldn't. No. I don't think it's Christmassy. I think it's Sunday roast, but I don't think it's
I'd
Christmassy.
be interested in that. I've always just had them. Always.
Aye.
In the comments or on Instagram stories when you tag us and you send us our hate for some of the things we've said, give us your answer on this as well.
I'm open to it. I'm open to it.
Yeah.
I'll eat in.
Who's doing Christmas dinner for you?
I'll eat in anytime, my mum.
I'm gonna message her. Not that I've got her number.
I fucking hope not. She'll be listening to this, Leslie.
Put the Yorkies on, Leslie.
Do not speak to this man.
Do not speak to this man. If he appears in your WhatsApp.
Hi Leslie, are you doing Yorkies this year?
Hi Leslie, you heard about the 12-week peak? I see my mod on the 12-week peak. Fucking hell. I would not be that photo shoot.
Right, Chris, take us home with your unpopular Christmas opinion.
Right. Elf is a shite film.
I'm going to disagree again on this one.
It's shite. It is
Why though? Why?
because it's for simpletons, right? It is a terrible story from start to finish. It's not funny, right? Every funny bit's in the trailer. Santa! And then he bops, did you hear that? That's not funny. It's a there's so many better Christmas films, so many better. Like Home Alone 1, Home Alone 2, fucking even Home Alone 3, which is shite, and you probably never heard of, is better than Elf. Like even rom-coms like The Holiday,
Actually.
The Holiday, Love Actually, one that never gets a mention, by the way, which I'm glad to get. Just Friends is a Christmas
Not
film.
heard of
Ryan
that.
Reynolds, the rom-com, he goes home at Christmas. It's all centered around Christmas. That's a funny film. That's hilarious,
And it's better than Elf.
And it's better than Elf. Much better than Elf.
I like
it's
Elf.
just a terrible film.
Elf's in the same bracket as Role Models. It's the same shite comedy, but it's class. It's funny. I like it.
You like Will Ferrell then?
What?
You like Will Ferrell as an actor?
I like a lot of his films. I also only seen Elf maybe 3 years ago.
I was going to say, I only saw it 2 years ago.
Is it new? How new
No,
is
it's
it?
really old.
old.
So
It's old,
I think people slightly younger than us have an even stronger attachment to it because they were of a particular age when it came out.
Yeah.
So people get really are going to get very defensive about what Chris has just said. But yeah, I only saw it 2 years ago for the first time as well.
I'm not like crazy strong opinion. I just quite like it, and I'm just not that big on Christmas films. I don't like to be forced. It's this time of the year. You must fucking watch this. I'm like,
I feel like it's a weird theme.
Is Die Hard a Christmas film?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because Bruce Willis himself said it wasn't.
Said it wasn't.
Wow.
Said it wasn't.
There we go.
Live on stage
Straight
at the
from Bruce.
roast of Bruce Willis, he said Die Hard is not a Christmas movie.
Interesting.
So,
but it's because it's shown at this time of year on
Yeah.
TV. But who now watches films
Like
when they're
actual
on TV?
TV, yeah.
Like,
yeah, because you know what always reminds me of Christmas is Flash Gordon. Right, Flash Gordon was always on BBC at Christmas, and I watched it every year. But like, it's fucking
Ancient.
It's like for the 70s, and the guy's flying about space killing aliens. It's nothing to do with Christmas.
but really, this is going to get released on Christmas Day, so people should be watching this on Christmas Day on their screens, in my opinion.
I don't know. I tell you what, watching this, don't watch Elf. Whatever you do,
make sure you're watching it. Or you're eating.
yeah. Honestly, you can have
Yorkies.
You can have Yorkies with your dinner. You can do whatever you want. Just don't watch Elf.
The first ever King's Speech in however long since obviously Queen Elizabeth's no longer with us, and then this.
Bring that up.
And then this. At least none of your unpopular opinions were anti-royal.
Well, no, I was being respectful.
maybe next time. But gents, let's wrap it up there. Where's the best place for people to head towards? It'll all be linked in the show notes as well, so don't worry if you get it wrong, Chris.
Right.
Chris, what's your Instagram handle?
My Instagram handle is @SavvyScholarChris. So you can find me there, and you can find all the links you need there. And feel free to DM me, giving me dog's abuse for any of my unpopular opinions.
Yep.
My Instagram handle is @dhat_MTN. My company page is @MTN Coaching.
Brilliant. That'll be linked in the show notes, guys. If you are listening to us on Christmas Day, Merry Christmas. Hope you're having a fantastic festive period. And we'll be back to speak to you all again very, very soon.